For any city, hosting the Olympic Games is a huge gamble. You get 2 weeks of global glory, but it's paid for with decades of planning and billions of dollars. So when the athletes go home and the crowds finally disappear, what are they left with? A thriving urban masterpiece? Or a landscape of debt and decay? Okay, let's really get into it. The big question here isn't about the sports, right? It's about the legacy. Is hosting the games just a massive short-term spectacle, or is it a long-term strategy for a city's future? And what we're going to see is that the answer, well, it all comes down to the plan. Now, to really understand the gamble these modern cities are taking, we have to go back to the original dream. A dream that was so powerful it was brought back to life after being dormant, forget this, more than 1,000 years. I mean, just look at that gap. 1,503 years. It's kind of mind-blowing. When the ancient games were abolished way back in 393 CE, they just vanished. It took the vision of one man, Pierre de Coubertin, to bring them back in 1896, and he was fueled by this really powerful idea. And this was the big idea behind it all, Olympism. It's this belief that friendly competition on the field could actually promote peace and understanding between entire nations. It's a noble, almost utopian vision, isn't it? But as you can probably guess, this beautiful ideal was about to collide with the harsh realities of the modern world. And that brings us right to the heart of the issue for any host city. This is where we leave that philosophical dream behind and enter the real world of budgets, bulldozers, and bottom lines. You know the motto, it's incredibly inspiring. Faster, higher, stronger. It's really the pinnacle of human aspiration, and it perfectly sums up those 2 weeks of incredible competition. And here it is. This is the question that changes everything. Because after that last medal is hanging around someone's neck and the flame is finally extinguished, the host city is left all alone to deal with the consequences. And wow, does this table lay it all out. A typical host city promises a budget of a couple $2 billion, but the costs almost always spiral out of control. The result? Debt, and those infamous pictures of abandoned, decaying venues. And yet, some cities, like Los Angeles and Barcelona, they seem to defy the odds. So the real question is, how on earth did they do it? To get to the bottom of this, we're going to break down the stories of 3 recent host cities. We've got 2 incredible success stories and 1 pretty serious cautionary tale. Okay, so here's Barcelona's secret sauce, right here in this chart. Look at this breakdown. A whopping 42% of their investment went into permanent things, stuff the city needed anyway, like roads and transport. And the sports facilities? A measly 9%. See, they weren't building for a 2-week party. They were building for the next 50 years of their city's life. This whole strategy became known as the Barcelona model. Now, you have to remember, at the time, things were politically tense between the national government in Madrid and Catalan separatists. But they forged a compromise. The Olympics became this unifying mission, all focused on permanent urban transformation. And the result? A massive tourism boom that, is still going strong today. Fast forward 2 decades, and London took a page right out of Barcelona's playbook, but they added their own little twist. They actually called their games the Regeneration Games. The whole point was to use the event as a catalyst to revitalize East London, which was historically one of the city's poorest and most neglected areas. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just listen to this quote from London's former mayor Ken Livingstone. He lays it all out. The Olympics weren't really the goal. They were the tool. They were a massive, unmissable deadline that forced the investment and the political will to get a huge urban renewal project done. A project that might have taken decades otherwise, if it even happened at all. And then there's Rio. On paper, their plan looked pretty smart. It was ambitious, scattering venues all across the city to try and spread the benefits of regeneration. They wanted to host the first great South American Olympics. But their grand vision was about to collide head-on with an absolute perfect storm of problems. It was just one thing after another. A devastating economic recession, a terrifying public health crisis with the Zika virus outbreak, a massive political corruption scandal that completely destroyed public trust, and on top of all that, an institutional crisis. They were already stretched thin and in debt from hosting the World Cup just 2 years earlier. This toxic combination was fatal for their Olympic dream, leaving behind rusting stadiums and a whole lot of broken promises. So what does this all tell us? The big takeaway here is that the difference between a triumph and a total tragedy, it's not about luck. It's about having the right foundations in place before you even start planning. Turns out, there's a formula for success.
And here are the 4 keys. First, you need a unified government, just like that compromise between Madrid and Barcelona. Second, you need stable funding from lots of different sources, not just debt. Third, you have to build strong, accountable institutions, like London's Olympic Delivery Authority, to manage the project without corruption. And finally, and this is probably the most important one, you have to have a clear, long-term vision for the city itself.
So all of this brings us to the future. Because, let's be honest, the challenges that host cities are facing are only getting bigger, and the stakes are getting higher and higher.
If you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. A positive Olympic legacy is not some happy accident. It is the direct result of deliberate, careful, and institutionally sound planning that always prioritizes the city over the event.
And all of this leaves us with one huge, lingering question. In our modern era of soaring costs and global uncertainty, can that noble dream of Olympicism, of promoting peace and understanding through sport, can it actually survive the brutal economic and political realities of the 21st century? The future of the flame really does depend on the answer.